after a very successful coaching stop at Western Michigan and the University of Cincinnati, Coach Jones was hired to rebuild the University of Tennessee volunteer football program. That job is well underway with a winning season, another great recruiting class, and the Gator Bowl championship. Coach Jones loves law enforcement. His dad was a longtime police chief in Michigan, and his uncle was a Michigan State Police District Commander. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest speaker tonight, head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers, Butch Jones.
Well, good evening. It truly is an honor and a privilege to be with you tonight in this great evening, and this is a thrill for me because my father was my hero, and if I wasn't the head football coach of the University of Tennessee, I'd be a police officer. And so it is a great, great thrill to be here tonight. And when I was thinking about what I was going to say, and I started thinking about the parallels between law enforcement or football, or the many parallels between the Tennessee Highway Patrol and Tennessee football, I started thinking of a lot of adjectives. I started thinking about a lot of core values in life that are very, very critical. And the word I kept hearing all night, and Colonel kept speaking about it, is the term leadership. And all leadership is influence. That's why there's positive leaders, and that's why there's negative leaders. But everything that you accomplish stems from leadership. Patience. You have to display great patience with your work. In my profession, dealing with 17 to 22-year-old individuals, you try to raise them like your own children. But as we all know, your children mature a little bit differently, and no two of your kids are ever the same. And I have three boys, 18, 13, and 8, and they're all different. And I am proud to say that my oldest will be attending the University of Tennessee, so we're very excited about that. The other thing is gut instincts, relying on your gut. And you've been through everything, and the reason why you get to where you are, the reason why you're at this banquet tonight, is you relied on your gut instincts. And it's the ability also to rely on your training. We talk to our players all the time, you're training your habits so you can react instinctively. And that's what training does. But relying on your gut, relying on your training, relying on your instincts. Situational awareness, very, very important. We talk to our players all the time, the difference between inward focused and outward focused. In your line of profession, if you're inward focused, you're in trouble. You have to be outward focused all the time. You have to be aware of your environment, your situational awareness with everything that comes with it. And it's just like with us, I love reading body language. I love studying human nature. I love studying human behavior. My father taught me that. And I rely a lot on my gut instincts with everything that we do and the way we run the Tennessee football program. Serving the community. Everything is about service. My father taught me that a very, very long time ago. And for us, it's being champions in the community. It's giving back to everything that we do. We always talk to our players in terms, the logo never comes off. You can put your civilian clothes on, but the power T never leaves you. Being a state trooper, it never leaves you. It's always with you. You may not have your badge on, but you always have your badge on. Teamwork. A lot of these individuals tonight will be recognized, but I think they'll be the first to tell you that they couldn't do it without their teammates. So much of individual accomplishments are born because of teamwork. Teamwork is everything. Toughness. I call it Tennessee tough, T-tough. And there's three things that we talk about in our football program about toughness. The first one is mental toughness. The second is physical toughness. And the third is emotional toughness. And your mood dictates everything. It dictates your temperament at work. It dictates how you deal with people on a day-to-day basis. And then the ability to handle and solve other people's problems. A lot of times you have to be a great manager. That's part of leadership. Colonel and I were talking about, just commanding a group of individuals, and everyone has their own dynamics and everyone has their own personalities. And it was like when I was hiring an offensive coordinator, I knew what we needed. And, everyone in Vol Nation wanted me to go out and hire the highest priced offensive coordinator in the country. That's not what Tennessee football needed. And I relied on my gut instincts, and we needed the right fit for our players, the right fit for our coaching staff, and then sacrifice. So much that goes into being successful is a willingness to sacrifice. And I think that's one of the missing ingredients in today's society. The generation that we're dealing with is called Generation Y. I put an I in front of it. Generation I, Y. Why? iPhones, iPads, iPods. It's the selfie generation. And everything is about I. And images are the language of the 21st century. And I talked to our team a little bit about today. Your life is two things. Your life is either a river or a flood. And ironically, Cam Sutton tweeted that today. If you visualize a river is bounded by two boundaries. It flows in harmony and it flows in one direction. That's the illustration of an individual who has no clutter and distraction in their life. They're focused, they're determined, they're goal-oriented. Then the other individual is their life is a flood. When you think of a flood, there's water everywhere. That's an individual who has a lot of clutter and distractions, not goal-oriented. And we talk to our players all the time about you're either a river or a flood. But the sacrifice, when you look at the rate of the academy and troopers making it out, and about 40%, I believe, make it out. And it's easy in today's society to quit. And we spoke to our team all last year that we were digging for gold. And if you saw our players in the Vanderbilt game, they started like taking a shovel and they kept doing this. Derek Barnett kept doing it all game. And we talked about we were digging for gold, and the illustration was so many people quit when if they just took one more shovel, they'd reach gold. And so many times individuals quit when success is imminent. Success is right there, but it's easy to quit in today's society. And I commend you for the sacrifice that you bring to the great state of Tennessee and this entire organization. I grew up in a law enforcement family like the Colonel spoke about. My dad was my hero. He was the chief of police for 30 some odd years when we grew up. And my greatest moments was as a kid growing up, in between shifts, the police officers would come to my dad's house. And I'd be about 4, 5, 6 years old, and they'd smoke cigarettes, talk about the problems of the night, and drink coffee back then. And so I had my own little coffee cup with water and those old those candy cigarette candies that they used to sell. And my uncle, who was a post commander in the Michigan State Police, his wife made me my police uniform when I was 5 years old. I had the real thing, the gun belt, all that. I can tell you numerous stories. One time, my thrill was I'd go play in the police car. While everyone else was out playing, I'd go play in the police car. Well, I have two fond memories. One, my dad was somewhere, and I managed to find how to turn the sirens on, and we lived in a small community, and it just so happened there was a tornado warning at the time. So everybody thought that a tornado was coming. Another time, I had my own billy club. I forgot and left the billy club under the seat. They had picked up someone. They had him in the back of the patrol car, and the billy club rolled underneath the seat to where the individual in the back seat was. So that was an interesting conversation, to say the least. And then probably the last memory was my mom and dad went on vacation, and I went and I took my dad's handcuffs. out of his holster and snuck them to my cousins and locked my cousin up, and they didn't have the key. So they had to call a bunch of officers to come over and get him out of his handcuffs. But, so much of everything that goes into it is the sacrifice of the families. And I was telling Colonel, just like football is a way of life, law enforcement is a way of life. And one of the events that really changed my life, my father was a tough love individual. And you talk about the adversity that families go through in law enforcement. I was a freshman at college, and I was making my first career start. And I'll never forget it. We're in a team meeting, and I looked over, and I saw, it was a Friday, I looked over, I saw my father and my grandfather's best friend. My grandfather was my second dad, and we were extremely close. And about this time of year, my grandparents would drive down to Florida, and I looked over, and my gut told me something wasn't right, but I tried to talk myself out of it, and I said, they're just here because they're excited for the game tomorrow. And the head coach at the time came over, and he's crying, and he says, your dad's here, and he's going to take you back home. And I said, is everything okay? And he says, no. So my father takes me in, and he says, your grandfather passed away today. He's dead, and we're going to take you home. So my dad didn't tell me anything. Well, what I found out is my father went home for lunch. He's sitting at home. It's about noontime. My grandfather which is his father, wants to go get a flashlight down at the local hardware store. It was cold that day. It's never cold in Michigan, but it happened to be cold that day. So he leaves the car running. The car jumps in reverse and runs him over. And so the car is sitting on top of my grandfather, and my father gets a call that a gentleman has been struck and killed downtown. So my dad gets in his car and he goes. Lo and behold, he arrives at the scene, and there's his own father laying on the ground with the car on top of him. And my dad blamed himself about 10 years because he couldn't pick the car up. But it changed our family dynamics because it really taught me about telling people you love them. And it changed everything. And so I use that illustration in life the way I raised my 3 boys. But again, the sacrifices, you put your lives on the line every single day to protect our community. You're the real heroes. And I mean that sincerely. So I greatly appreciate everything that you do. We live in a result-oriented world. I call it a sports center society. Everybody goes home, and the only thing they see are the highlights. They do not see all the training that went into it. They don't see you all in the academy. They don't see all the behind-the-scenes things. I always talk about it's the little things that no one sees that becomes the big things that everyone wants. And it's the small things. It's the small details by the way you live your life. And I know tonight is about honoring service, excellent results, and teamwork. And I'd like to spend just 1 or 2 minutes with you about culture. Everything is about a culture. And we arrived at Tennessee. We had too many individuals in our football organization that loved the power of the T. They didn't love the power T. They loved the power of the T that came with it, the parties, the vol walk, running through the T. But they didn't have an affinity for the power T. They didn't have an affinity for what they represent in this great state on a daily basis. And I found that out early. And so we had to build an affinity. We had to build a culture. We had to build a mindset, a passion, an energy for Tennessee football in this great state. And so my off-season project has been defining our culture. Are we living up to our culture? Because really, in every great organization, it's culturally centered. Everything is about a culture. It's having like-minded people. I told our staff, I want like-minded people. I told Team 119, we need like-minded people. Every person must understand that they represent and they own the culture. You own the culture of the Tennessee Highway Patrol. You own the culture of being a state trooper. So we put 5 C's into our culture. The first one is contagious. We want people to be contagious with each other. We want passion. We want energy. We want positive energy. We want a relentless approach. And that'll transform individuals. And the individuals that don't transform, they leave because they become uncomfortable. But I want a great working environment. I love energy. I don't like energy vampires. You know, those individuals that suck the life out of you every day. You know, I always tell our staff and our players, you're either a fountain or a drain. What are you? So I want contagious people. The next one is communication, and this is the big one, is communication, the ability to communicate. Too many times, text messaging, social media. This is the greatest challenge in society today. Email. I don't read emails. I do everything with face-to-face communication. I make every coach, including myself, we have candy in our offices. Why? Kids like candy. We get them in our offices. We can talk other than football. I want them coming around. But when you have communication, that develops trust. And when you have trust, it generates commitment. And when you have commitment, that fosters teamwork. So we want to be able to communicate. The next one is connection. You guys are part of a family. You got to be able to connect. You got to be able to read everyone's body language. You have to know exactly what everyone's thinking without really being able to have verbal communication. It may be nonverbal communication. But I talk about being a brotherhood of Tennessee football. Everyone being accountable, and every individual being accountable for their own self-determination to be the best person, best student athlete that they can possibly be. The next one is commitment. A big word, commitment. I always talk, if you hear me talk, I always talk about pride and performance, and that's one of the words here, pride. But taking great pride in your performance. What's your edge? What makes you the best trooper in this room? Because see, your last name is your personal brand. What does your last name stand for? So we talk about pride and performance. We talk about consistency in performance. Every great individual, they have one common link. They're consistent. They're never too high. They're never too low. They just bring it every day. So we talk about that. We talk about a championship mindset and being the best at your responsibility. If you're a dispatcher, I'm going to be the best dispatcher, not in the state of Tennessee, but in the country. And that's what we talk about. We're building the best football program in the country. If our secretary is answering the phone, she's answering the phone with the best secretary in the country. It's like I would call in and, you know, they just say Tennessee football. I said, well, usually if people call us, especially if it's a parent, they're probably not happy. We're in customer service. So we answer our phones. It's a great day in Rocky Top, Tennessee football. And it's how you want your organization to be looked upon. And then the last one is care. Caring about the team. If you care about the team, you'll fight for it. If you care about the culture, you'll fight for it. If you care about the tradition, the future, and the present, you'll fight for it. And it's that care factor that we talk about all the time. I'm almost done here. I hope I'm not taking up too much of your time. The last thing I asked our staff to do, and we've been going through it, is I asked every member in our organization, I need a better version of you. If we could have a better version of you, if there's just one thing that could be a better version of you, just think how better our organization would be. So it has been very, very rewarding. This past week, everyone in our football organization has been getting up amongst their peers and talking about the better version of them. What's the one thing that they can make Tennessee football better? And that's been a very, very rewarding experience. Again, I want to say thank you to the families here in all the things that go into it, the many sacrifices, the many moves. A lot of times maybe you don't get to see your own children because you're on the road working the long hours. I know with the weather, you know, all the sacrifice that you had, but I greatly appreciate all the families being here because law enforcement is a way of life just like football is. I was telling the colonel when he talked about Motorola, It brought back like instant memories. My father has since passed, but when I go back home, my mom still has her police scanner on. And she's been conditioned to that thing, and that's a way of life in the Jones household. I don't want to get emotional on this one, but Eric Miller, I'm telling you, you want a representative of the Tennessee Highway Patrol, a state trooper, it's that individual. Couldn't do my job without him. And he's a great friend, a mentor, and a role model. And he's kind of like my armor bearer everywhere I go. I've even taken him on recruiting. Now, he needs a little bit of help. We're trying to get him more socially out there and smile a little bit more and joke. So that's my next job. But, he's a great representative of what this organization stands for. And it's all about people. Everyone says, how can you recruit so well? I laugh. People make a place. We have great people. It's easy to sell when you have a passion for what you're doing. And I don't consider it selling. It's just energy. We're just following our culture. But again, if you look at your department's mission to serve, secure, and protect the people of Tennessee, in our organization, it's about giving your all for Tennessee. And I want to thank you because everyone in this room gives their all for Tennessee. Thank you, and God bless.
Obviously, Coach Jones has made a great night tonight, and I want to give him something to remember this night by. If you think about a Tennessee state trooper, there's one thing that separates us from most law enforcement agencies and makes us instantly recognizable, and that's our hat. And I want to give Coach Jones this plaque with a Tennessee state trooper hat on it, signed by the members of the command staff, to memorialize this night together with us. Thank you.
I was told I could come back next year if we win the SEC championship. So I'll see everyone next year. Thank you.